Welcome to Blooming Dandelion, where we explore healing, growing, and evolving to live a balanced and fulfilling life. I'm your host, Andrea Rivera Cazul, and each week we'll dive into practical tips, inspiring stories, and expert advice to help you bloom. Let's get started.
Welcome back. We are here for another week of Blooming Dandelion. This is exciting. I say it every week. The excitement has not gone away. I can't help it, okay? I cannot help it that I'm excited. I cannot help it that I'm loving doing this. Even if it is solo dolo right now. I am alone in my room, talking to myself, my little office. But I love connecting with y'all. I love getting to sit here, and even if it is by myself, I love knowing that me sitting here and getting to speak with you is still getting to speak with you at a deeper level, if you know what I mean. I feel truly like you are sitting here in front of me and you get to connect with me in ways that many folks have not connected with me on this level. I get to share a deeper side to me. I just told my friend this at an event that we went to. I feel like there's a deep confrontation or a deep introspection to this podcast for me. In a way, I am getting to heal parts that I didn't know that still needed healing. And it's very therapeutic. And I think that parts of my social media, parts of what I do here on my podcast, part of things that I do privately too, all of that together is all therapeutic for me. And no one can take that away from me. I think that that's the beautiful part. And truly, it is truly a gift to be able to sit here and do this and share this with all of you, and to be here weekly, to have a platform, because even if it is one person or two people that listen to me, it means a lot. It means a lot that y'all trust in what I say and what I share, and know that I will never false advertise or falsely give information that I don't go and look for and do research on. I will make sure to always uphold and just make sure that it's concrete and not just bullshit. I'm not here just to talk shit and not just to spew out the first thing that I think of. So I just really honor and appreciate the trust that you're giving me by being a listener. So I just wanted to give some appreciation to y'all, because y'all are really important. But we're gonna get into the Blooming Soil. You already know. The Blooming Soil. This week got me, y'all. I have a soil for y'all today. I've been telling this story. I posted it on my personal Instagram and TikTok. Y'all, I went to the gym. On Saturday, and it was leg day. I can't believe I'm sharing this story again, but I publicly posted it, so it doesn't matter. I went to the gym. I actively go. The gym is my safe space for me and my mental health. It really is all about movement for me. But I went to the gym and was really pumped. It was early in the morning. I went at 6:45 a.m. and went to Planet Fitness, of all places. I went to a gym that was public and big. So I'm squatting, and this is a smaller Planet Fitness, so you could see in the background all of the cardio machines. And I'm looking and staring and say, hey, like, there's a Stairmaster that's open. And I was like, great, I'll finish the set and go over to the Stairmaster. I'm finishing the set, and all of a sudden, all I hear is a rip. I felt like SpongeBob. I ripped my pants. I squatted so low that I ripped my pants. When I tell you that I went up so fast, and I put the dumbbell, like I just racked it, and I ran to the bathroom, and I checked, and I certainly had a hole. Certainly did. And I ended up going home. I changed and all that stuff. You know, I don't get embarrassed because things happen. Accidents happen. It was just hilarious. I could not stop laughing. I was like, of course this would happen to me on a Saturday. Yes, nothing else. So that was a soil. And no, I did not soil my pants. That was extra. I don't know why I just said that. But yes, I just ripped my pants. My bloom this week has really been being able to connect with my grandmother this week. It was her birthday. It has really been a gift to connect with just the older generation in my family and being able to heal in ways that you didn't think that needed healing, and learn, because there's gems in our families that we just don't know about. There's healing that needs to be done within our families that we don't know about. And when we have empathy for each other and allow ourselves to, like I usually say, walk in each other's shoes and give that space of empathy and trust and space, I think that it truly allows us to just learn the type of person that we are, that we've been raised to be, the type of person that they were. And I just think that it's important to, if you have still that connection, or if it is a connection that you value and it's a connection that is safe, that it's time to spend those moments and those conversations with. But again, I know a lot of folks don't have those relationships, and that's okay too. But that's my bloom. My bloom is literally just being able to spend cherished time with so many. I mean, my grandmother is just one piece of the puzzle. I think I look at my cousin, who's just now a brand new mother, and seeing all of my cousins that are becoming new mothers, and it's just a special treat. It really is a special treat to see how we've grown up, and how time, even though sometimes goes slow, it also goes by so fast. And so it's really beautiful to see how just time works, and how years go by, but we're still the same, but we're so different. And so those are my bloom in soil. I'm not gonna cry. Oh, my other bloom. I just almost picked up my mic. My other bloom is that I went to see Giraffe Wallow at her Loud tour for her book release, featuring the Two Idiot Girls podcast with Dason, her sister. It was so much fun. It was a girls' night event. I went with my friend. It was the best time. It was so much fun, like funny, interactive. It was great. I posted on it. She commented. I get so fired up when I just am able to give folks their roses, their flowers, and they comment back. I'm a person of affirmations and a person of just giving credit where credit's due, and what's that love language? Words of affirmation. Words of affirmation. I am a person of words of affirmation, and truly I think that when I see that they know that they're being appreciated, even if it is someone high up, I tend to do that with, I hope that people know that I do that with friends and family. I do other stuff, but that is one of my love languages, I would say. Hopefully others agree. If not, then I'm really confused as to what my love languages are. But now I'm rambling, and we're now 10 minutes in, and I hope that you are already having a good time. Even if it's in the morning, afternoon, whenever you are listening to this podcast, we're going to get into today's topic, which is boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Say it 3 times. Say it 3 times. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. We all need what? Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. I told you to say it 3 times. You didn't say it with me. Say it with me. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Yes, we all need boundaries. Every single one of us has boundaries. Everyone's boundaries looks different, but we all have boundaries. We all have different boundaries. We all show up differently when our boundaries are crossed. We all show up differently when our boundaries are respected. We all show up differently when our boundaries are questioned. Because I think a lot of people push back when you are telling them like, hey, that's a boundary of mine. And there's other people that don't question it. And those are great people. Keep those in your life. When they don't question what type of boundaries you have, and they appreciate it, and they also share what type of boundaries they have, I think that that's match made in heaven. So I think keep those around. Those are your besties. Those are people that truly love you and see you for who you are. But anyways, boundaries. I want you to know that I went digging and I went through some websites and all that stuff, and there are 7 types of boundaries that you should keep. And I think mostly I knew about these, but I didn't know that there were 7 types. And I think when you lay it out, it makes sense, but sometimes it's just a little confusing to like read it and have it be vocal and have it be like brought up to you. But truly, boundaries keep us safe. Boundaries are necessary. And if you've never been told what boundaries are, I promise you that you probably do, and you just don't know what to call it. You might call it rules. You might call it like, hey, that's a no-no for me. That's a boundary. But I think everyone knows it as boundaries. But if not, I'm going to go into boundaries and why you need them and all that stuff. And all of the stuff that I am reading off of and the information that I got is from Psych Central. So we're going to get into the 7 types of boundaries that you need and why they're important to keep us safe. All right. So the important way to identify your boundaries and where you need them in your life is, are you feeling constantly tired? Are you feeling constantly uncomfortable around people? Do you feel resentful with folks' intrusions? If any of those like situations are coming up, then sometimes it's a matter of a boundary. So the first one is physical boundaries. I think a lot of people know about physical boundaries. I think when we grow up, the first conversation that many parents have with their children is like, hey, if Tommy or Angelica, Rugrats names, if Tommy or Angelica come up to you and they touch you in your arm or they hit you, that's a no-no. Like, they shouldn't do that. I think that that's the most common example that we're told. Obviously, most parents go into a more definition of boundaries when it comes to a more adult frame, whether it comes to sexual contact or anything like that. But physical boundaries really is to protect your space and your body, because no one has the right to touch you if you don't give them the right to. You have a right to privacy and to meet your physical needs, such as resting or eating. They tell others how close you can get to you, what kind of physical touch is okay, if any. There are people that don't like to be hugged, and that's okay. Some people just don't like affection. So it's okay to understand what it is that they need and how you can show up for a loved one. So just talk to folks, right? Talk to your loved one and say, how can I show you affection? How can I show you how I appreciate you without being physical, if that is not your thing? So some examples of physical boundaries are when someone sits next to you, uncomfortably close to you, and you move away, or you say, I need a little bit more space. I need a little bit more personal space, or a personal bubble. A lot of us like to say that. Or we don't keep or consume alcohol at our house. Remember that physical boundaries also include what we consume, and it's okay to say, hey, I might be a alcoholic, or I just don't feel comfortable around alcohol, because that's okay too. And so advocating for what it is that you like and desire and don't and also don't like is really important. Sexual boundaries is the next one. So sexual boundaries protects your right to consent, which consent is important and always necessary. To ask for what you like sexually, and to honestly talk about your sexual history with your partners. They define what kind of sexual touch and intimacy is like, and what you want, and how often, where, and with whom you want it with. The examples for sexual boundaries is, I like to be touched like this, and Jenny has a personal policy of not having sex on the first date. The third one, which I think comes up for me a lot, is emotional or mental boundaries. I think this also comes up for a lot of survivors, but I think it comes up for a lot of folks. For emotional or mental boundaries, you have the right to protect your own feelings and thoughts, to not have your feelings criticized or invalidated, and not have to take care of other people's feelings. Emotional boundaries differentiate from your feelings from other people's, so you're accountable for your own feelings, but not responsible for how others feel. Emotional boundaries also allow us to create emotional safety by respecting each other's feelings, not oversharing personal information that's inappropriate for the nature of level of closeness in the relationship. So examples, I don't feel comfortable discussing this, or I feel embarrassed and powerless when you chastise me in front of our kids. I'd like you to stop. I think a lot of times when we are experiencing any type of emotional abuse, narcissistic abuse, this comes up frequently. And this is why it's really important to understand the different levels of boundaries that we need, and how to stick up for ourselves and how to protect ourselves. And if we are not ready to talk about boundaries with our partners, or if it's not safe to, at least figuring out what it is that might make you feel better, and finding resources out there that could help you. I worked at a DV agency, and at that DV agency there were free counselors that were there. There are different agencies that have them 24/7. My agency was a 12-hour one, and so they usually could call folks and schedule appointments to come in. Their address was completely hidden, and so folks can come in and have resources that could help financially, and I mean there's a whole gamut of things, and so it really is important to discuss this with someone who you feel is safe. The next one is spiritual or religious boundaries. So spiritual boundaries protect your right to believe in what you want, worship as you wish, and practice your spiritual or religious beliefs. So example, I'm going to take a moment and say a silent prayer before we eat. Or Paul goes to church alone because his partner doesn't share his beliefs. I would see this a lot with a coworker, and apparently I can't speak. I used to see this a lot with a coworker. I used to work at a Catholic university, and I knew a lot of folks didn't really pray at the lunch table or anything like that, but they took their time and said a prayer, and everyone respected that. Everyone just respected that boundary. That was something really important to that person, and it was not an issue. It's really important that you understand that a boundary has nothing to do with the other person. It's just respecting someone else. So it has nothing to do with you. It has something to do entirely with somebody else. So it's really important to just know that it's easy to respect somebody else. If it's hard to respect somebody else, then you have to do some introspective work, because it should never be hard to respect somebody else's boundaries. I'm just saying. Number 5, financial and material boundaries. Financial and material boundaries protect your financial resources and possessions, your right to spend your money as you choose. You can see this a lot with monetary and financial abuse. I experienced this a lot. There was a lot of folks that I used to work with that you saw that their whole paycheck was taken away from them and all that. Also some examples is, I'm on a budget, so I brought my lunch from home and won't be ordering lunch today, and please don't borrow my car without asking. But it's important to also note that some folks just don't have the ability. I think that when you see boundaries and it's clear, right, to us, like we see it written, and it's important that we know that, and my goodness, like, it's common sense. Like, why wouldn't we see it and be like, this is dumb, why are we talking about it? It's not. I can tell you that. I think that I didn't feel like it was obvious until I got out and I got help. It wasn't something that I put into practice all the time. I was heavily into a relationship that was causing me harm, and I was sending money to another state so that person could survive. And they had a job. And that's something that you have to really think about, like, tirelessly. And now, like, even now, years later, being outside of that relationship, I still kick my own butt, and it's a never-ending cycle. Like, I feel very much anger and guilt, and I mean all the emotions, and it comes in waves. It comes in waves, and the triggers can happen at any moment. That's the sucky part, is that it can happen whenever. The triggers do not justify, like, they just don't discriminate on the moment. You could literally be having the best time of your life, and just the temperature change, it dropped, and it felt just the same as the day that this moment happened. Triggered. Somebody's wearing the same perfume as that moment. Triggered. So I think it's so important to understand that not everyone is at the same moment in time as you. Not everyone has had to experience trauma as us. Not everyone has ever experienced trauma, which, lucky for you. And that's amazing. No one should ever experience trauma. But unfortunately, a lot of us have. And a lot of us will, again, unfortunately. I think that that's also a misconception, that trauma is a one and done experience. No, unfortunately, it happens 1, 2, 3 times again. And it has nothing to do with a survivor. It has everything to do with the perpetrator. That was my rant for the middle part. Number 6, time boundaries. Time boundaries protect how you spend your time. They protect you from agreeing to do things you don't want to do, having people waste your time, and being overworked. Examples: I reserve my evenings for family time. I'll respond to all work emails first thing in the morning. And Dad, I don't have time to take you shopping this week. I'll place an order for you with a grocery delivery service. This one. Time boundaries. Time boundaries for me is mostly with work, because I do not live to work. I do work so that I can live, but I do not live to work. I do not like to work. And my boundaries are confined to the hours of work. You will not catch me answering an email, a phone call, or anything past the hours of what I work. That's number one. Okay? I do not get paid overtime to answer a phone call or an email after work. No. It is not an emergency for me to answer something after hours. No. You will not catch me answering any of that stuff. That is my... And if somebody has a problem with that, they know what to do. I have too much self-respect to do that. That is their issue, not mine. I set my boundaries, and I'm very comfortable with my boundaries. And I know that if there were ever to be consequences, I'm very comfortable with my boundaries. Again, I will say that loud and clear. I'm very comfortable with the boundaries that I set. And I'm okay with any consequences that come through with the boundaries that I set. With any of my boundaries. I think that's the important part. But for time boundaries, it is so important. I think it's important to put your foot on the ground and say, hey, I don't like this person and I don't want to spend time with them. So I will not be joining said dinner, said lunch, said family activity. You will not see me. Love you. Love you. Bye-bye. No. It is okay to put your foot down and to also demand family members and everyone to accept your boundaries. Okay? Don't be forced and coerced to invite Joe Schmo to your wedding if you don't like them and you don't see them. I'm just letting you know. You have boundaries. You should enhance and just enact on them. Let them know it is okay. And number 7, you have your non-negotiable boundaries. I think I have hinted on that. But your non-negotiable boundaries are your deal breakers, things that you absolutely must have in order to feel safe. They usually pertain to safety issues such as physical violence, emotional abuse, drug or alcohol use, fidelity, and life-threatening health issues. Examples: Mom, if you don't install a fence around the pool, my children will not be able to come to your house. Infidelity is a deal breaker for me, and I will not continue in this relationship if you cheat on me. So we all need some non-negotiable boundaries, but we also need to be careful that we don't put too many of our boundaries into this category. That's important. If a non-negotiable boundary is going to have any meaning, you have to be willing to follow through on it. It's counterproductive to set non-negotiable boundaries that you don't enforce. I have an example of this non-negotiable boundary, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say a trigger warning right now. My non-negotiable boundary in my first relationship, I told my partner at the time, you will never put your hands on me. That is a non-negotiable. My partner put his hands on me once. The first couple of years. Shoved me around. Pushed me around. And I came back. And I let it come back. And I allowed him. It was counterproductive. It was counterproductive because I didn't follow through with what I had set as my non-negotiable. I did not end the relationship. I did not argue with him. I actually pleaded and begged to come back into the relationship, to forgive me and plead, and I was begging. And I say this, and I don't say this so that there's pity and like confusion, as I say this because this is the reality. I say this because there are moments in our lives when we are out at our worst And we feel like we are not worth what we are worth. And so I say, and I sit here, and this is the reason why I do this podcast. And this is one of the reasons why I share so openly, because so many people are afraid still to this day, and that's okay. I'm happy to be someone's voice, even if, again, my abuse is not to the extent of their abuse. And again, not all abusers have to say, not all survivors, not all survivors have to say what they've gone through. I will say, I do look back and I do have the wave of emotions that I get from everything. And I do wish that my non-negotiable had stuck. And I think that that's a feeling that I get from the whole relationship, right? I feel like I could have pulled myself out of it, and I could have shared what I was going through, and I could have. That word, could have. But there's no use of using that word. There's no use of going back in time and trying to repair what could have happened. But it is important to share my story. It is important to share with my family. My family, again, I shared my experiences with them, and I think as the podcast comes out, they are slowly listening and slowly capturing little bits and pieces more and more. And I think as more time has passed, they've also gotten more anecdotes and stories from me of also memories that I've slowly captured me remembering, because I do feel like a lot of my memories have just either gone away, and I know that that's kind of a tactic of survival, but I feel like a lot has been erased, and sometimes it feels like it never happened, and then sometimes it feels vivid. It's wild. But I see all of that, and it's just like the perfect example of the cycles of abuse. You saw that my non-negotiable didn't follow through. And so then we were this merry, happily couple, and everything was good, and everyone saw us together, and we were great for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, showered with dates, gifts, or whatever was coming along, and then something big would happen, and then it happened again. So I say this because I feel like social media puts up a front of these perfect people, of what they are and what they go to, these extravagant events and all that stuff, and sometimes they don't show who they are truly. And I want you to know who I am truly. I want you to know that people exist out here who have gone through terrible things and have acquired strength through the process and have made it to a place of resiliency, that have been able to just get to a point of tranquility. And maybe you're not at a place where you feel the most safe or not feel the most healed, but I promise that you're getting there. I saw a movie, oh my goodness, I'm going to blank right now on the movie, but the movie has, my goodness, what is her name? She played Poison Ivy in the old Batman and Robin, and I'm going to flip out when I literally am going to flip out because I'm literally searching it. Oh, Uma Thurman, her daughter. What is her name? Uma Thurman. Oh my goodness, y'all are seeing me in vivid reaction mode. Uma Thurman's daughter is... I'm so sorry, y'all. I should have been prepped. Uma Thurman, Maya Hawke was in Do Revenge. That's the one. Do Revenge. I watched Do Revenge again. I watched it when it came out, and I watched it again recently. It's with Camila Mendes and Maya Hawke. It's a pretty funny movie. It's really good. Recommend it. But I'm so glad that I rewatched it, and that I rewatched it recently when I was planning on doing this podcast, because the final, one of the final quotes that happened, and I'm so sorry if I'm spoiling it, but it really is not a spoil. It's just a good little quote that the headmaster says, and I won't say who the headmaster is, but the headmaster says this quote, and I think that this perfectly explains what boundaries can do for us, and how it can show up for us. And maybe I'm wrong, but I really just resonated with this, and I think that it can apply. And if you don't agree, then let me know. But I think it does. But this is the quote. You've been cocooned. Everything you've done, everything that's happened to you has brought you to this moment. And now you're a butterfly, a beautiful kaleidoscope of trauma and resilience. Chills. Chills. I get chills. Every time I hear that, I just, I don't know why. I feel so gravitated towards it, and I had to replay it several times. And again, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to say it one more time. So, you've been cocooned. Everything you've done, everything that's happened to you has brought you to this place and this moment. And now you're a butterfly, a beautiful kaleidoscope of trauma and resilience. That's the part I think that resonates the most. It's the beautiful butterfly, a beautiful kaleidoscope of trauma and resilience. I'm done. I think that resonates so much for me because part of my tattoo, which I don't know if you can see, but I have a tattoo here. Obviously, blooming dandelions. I gave y'all the definition of what dandelions was and what dandelions meant to me. That day in the dandelions, showing up and all that stuff, there were a ton of butterflies. So butterflies also have a really significant meaning to me. So, man, this is just a beautiful quote. And I think that this is something that I'm going to have to get a tattoo. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Mom. I know she's watching this episode. I know she's going to watch this episode. But I want to kind of finish this episode off with a self-love challenge this month because we are in Fat Liberation Month. We discussed that in body positive. Is it body positive, body neutral, or fat liberation? So it is Fat Liberation Month in the month of August. Happy August. I feel like time has flown by. So I'm going to tell you what this week's challenge is, and so every week I'll tell you what the challenge is, and you'll do the whole 7 days. You're going to see the challenges on my story on @Blooming Dandelion Podcast. You'll follow along. I'll keep it pinned in my stories, in my highlights as well. And I'll also do posts about it and stuff, but I'm going to talk you through the challenge right now because I think that it's gonna be fun and exciting, and I think it's really important for us to dive into some self-love challenges because it's time for us to put ourselves first, to set boundaries with what it is that we like. And so a part of the self-love challenge is incorporating those boundaries with our self-love challenge, right? Because we have to set time for that. So for this week, week 1 is going to be all about mindful mornings. Week 2 is about nourishing our bodies. Week 3 will be emotional well-being. Week 4 about self-compassion. And then the final days will be celebration and reflection. So the week 1, for day 1, you're going to write down 3 things you love about yourself. And I'm going to put this on a story. I'm going to put this in the Instagram post, but take out a notebook and write down what you're going to do this week, okay? Type it down, put it in a challenge notebook, whatever you're going to write it down through. I'm going to repeat it. Day 1, you're going to write down 3 things you love about yourself. Day 2, you're going to spend 10 minutes meditating. Day 3, you're going to read a chapter from a book that inspires you. With that one, you can rent a book through Libby with your library card for free. Just letting you know, you don't have to go out there and purchase a book or anything. There are options to get books for free. Day 4, take a 15-minute walk without any digital distractions. Day 5, write a positive affirmation and repeat it throughout the day. Day 6, create a vision board of your goals and dreams. Day 7, reflect on the past week and write down your thoughts in a journal. This is exciting. I know that I say exciting a lot, but this is exciting. This is our first challenge. Are you going to do it? I hope you do it. I hope you join me. We're going to do it together. I'm going to do it on my story. You're going to do it on your story because we have boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Say it with me. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. We learned today about boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. You're going to have that stuck in your head all day. And what are you going to say? I learned that from Andy on the Blooming Dandelion Podcast because I have boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Yes! Period. Oh my gosh. I'm showing my true colors. Love you. I really hope you continue to listen to us because your support is so important. You showing up and showing up for yourself. That's the important part. You showing up to listen to this podcast means that you're showing up for yourself. And I hope that you know that that just makes me feel good, that you feel supported by this podcast, that you feel invigorated, that you feel like you have a safe space. And I hope that that always feels that way. So, I love you, or how the cool kids do it. I don't know how y'all do it. I love you. Even though some cool kids do this. I don't understand this. But I love you. Have a great week. Have a great self-love challenge week. I will come back in a week to see how y'all did. I know you're gonna do good. You are gonna do great. Start saying that. We are gonna do great. We are gonna do great. We're gonna do good. We are gonna do good. Because I have boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries.
Thanks for tuning in to Blooming Dandelion. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Follow us on social media on Instagram at Blooming Dandelion Podcast for more inspiration. And remember to keep on blooming. See you next time, dandelions.